When my son stood up at my 60th birthday dinner, he looked me dead in the eye and said, "Dad, you're pathetic. I don't want anything from you anymore." The entire steakhouse froze. My friends, my family, every face turned toward me. They thought I'd break. But what none of them knew was that I held the one secret capable of flipping his entire world upside down. Stay with me. This twist will blow your mind. I can still feel the weight of that night, like smoke that lingers long after the fire is out. My son's words weren't just sharp. They sliced through every layer of pride I'd built over 60 years. Pathetic. That's what he called me. In front of my entire family, my friends, people I'd known for decades. But here's the thing. This wasn't the first time Jason had tried to cut me down. Jason grew up in a house where nothing was missing. He had every toy he pointed at, every dollar for college, every door open for him, because I worked myself into the ground to make sure of it. I wasn't born with money. I clawed my way into it. I took a factory job straight out of high school, did overtime until my back screamed, and when that wasn't enough, I studied nights to get into management. Later, I started my own contracting company. 50 employees, union jobs, benefits, the whole thing. Jason never saw the sweat. All he saw was comfort. By the time he was 16, he had that look in his eyes, a mix of entitlement and disdain, like he was embarrassed of me, of the way I talked, the boots I wore, the hands rough from work. He wanted the polished life, the kind that comes from boardrooms and fancy suits. So he went to business school, got his MBA, and started lecturing me like I was some outdated piece of machinery. I tried to bridge the gap. I invested in his first startup, $500,000 of my own savings. He burned through it in 18 months. Came back, asked for more, promised the next one was different. It wasn't. Another collapse, more investors left hanging. I covered his debts to keep his reputation intact. But gratitude? That was never in his vocabulary. The more I helped, the more he looked at me like a stepping stone. And the moment I stopped writing checks, suddenly I became useless. That night at the steakhouse, when he humiliated me, I kept my face still. I let him think he'd won. Inside, though, something shifted. A quiet click, like a lock sliding into place. Because what Jason didn't know, and what nobody at that table knew, was that my pathetic life held more power than he could ever imagine. Over the years, while he was burning through money and chasing shiny titles, I was building something else, something solid, something hidden in plain sight. And if Jason wanted to play games with humiliation, then fine. I'd let him set the board. But the next move? That would be mine. What Jason didn't realize was that the very future of his company, his so-called empire, already sat in the palm of my hand. You might think a son humiliating his father at a birthday dinner was the worst of it. But trust me, that was just a spark. The real fire, the real injustice, came in the days that followed. The morning after the dinner, I woke up to a voicemail from my sister, Linda. Her voice was tight, hesitant. "You need to know, Jason's been talking. He's telling everyone you're done, that your company's worthless, that you're not capable of making decisions anymore. He's planning something, and it doesn't sound good." I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in hand, staring at the carpet. My son, my own flesh and blood, was already moving to bury me alive while I was still breathing. By noon, my phone started buzzing with calls from old business contacts. Some polite, some not so polite. They wanted to clarify the rumors. Was it true I'd stepped down? Was Jason the new man in charge? That was when it hit me. He wasn't just trying to humiliate me personally. He was trying to erase me professionally. Later that week, I drove down to the office of a construction company I built with my own two hands. A place where I'd poured sweat into the foundation, brick by brick. And there he was, Jason, sitting at my desk, leaning back like a king who had conquered new territory. He didn't even flinch when I walked in, just smirked. "Dad," he said, "I've been thinking, it's time for you to retire. Officially. People talk, and let's face it, you're old news. The company needs fresh leadership." My leadership. I clenched my jaw so tight it felt like my teeth would crack. "Your leadership?" I asked, The same leadership that bankrupted 2 startups and nearly tanked my retirement. His smirk didn't fade. Business is about vision, Dad. You don't have it anymore. I do. Investors trust me. And honestly, the only thing standing in my way is you. So, why don't you just step aside before you embarrass yourself even more? The nerve, the arrogance. This was the boy I carried on my shoulders, the boy I drove to baseball practice, the boy I defended when he got into fights at school. Now he was looking at me like I was nothing more than an obstacle to bulldoze. I walked out without another word. But inside, a storm was raging. That night, I found out just how deep his betrayal went. Linda called again. This time, she didn't hold back. He's planning to push you out legally, she said. He's been meeting with lawyers, talking about guardianship petitions. He wants to argue that you're unfit to manage your own affairs. Do you understand what that means? He wants control of everything, your company, your assets, even your retirement accounts. I gripped the phone until my knuckles turned white. Guardianship. As if I were some senile old man, unable to make a decision. He wasn't just stealing my company. He was trying to strip me of my dignity, my independence, my identity. It wasn't just business anymore. It was war. And it wasn't just about me. If he got away with this, every dollar I'd worked for, every brick I'd laid, every account I protected, it would all fall into his reckless hands. Employees would lose their jobs. My sister would lose her security. My wife's trust account, the one I set up before she passed, would be at risk. Jason wasn't just betraying me. He was betraying the entire family legacy. I sat alone in my den that night, staring at the framed photos on the wall. My late wife smiling in the backyard. Jason as a boy with his arm around me. Family holidays, graduations, weddings. And for the first time in my life, I felt something I had never felt toward my own son. Pure, unfiltered rage. But I also felt clarity. Because Jason had no idea that while he was scheming with lawyers and whispering to investors, I'd already set something in motion. Something he could never see coming. He thought he was cutting me out of the story. What he didn't realize was that I'd already written the next chapter, and his name wasn't on it. People always assume that when a man gets older, he gets weaker, easier to push aside. Jason certainly thought that. But what he never realized was that while I'd slowed down on the outside, my mind hadn't stopped calculating. See, a year before all this drama, I'd already prepared for the worst. After my wife passed, I went to see a lawyer in Dallas, a sharp, no-nonsense guy named Robert. Together, we drafted something Jason never even suspected, a family trust. Every share of my company, every deed, every account, carefully tucked inside a legal fortress. And the best part? Jason wasn't the sole heir anymore. I'd written his name smaller, much smaller. I remember Robert leaning across a mahogany desk, glasses perched on his nose. Look, your son may not like this, but if he ever tries to force your hand, this trust will protect you. Ironclad. He can stomp his feet all he wants. Legally, he won't own a thing without your consent. At the time, I wasn't sure if I'd ever need it. Part of me wanted to believe Jason would mature, that grief and arrogance were clouding his judgment. But now, hearing about guardianship petitions, seeing him in my chair, that trust became more than paperwork. It became my weapon. So I played along. I let him believe I was tired. I skipped a few board meetings. I let rumors spread that my health wasn't what it used to be. I even let him think I didn't notice the way he was sweet-talking investors, parading himself as the savior of the company. Because the louder Jason bragged, the deeper he buried himself. One evening, he barged into my house unannounced, papers in hand. Dad, I've got all figured out. We'll transition ownership to me gradually. Clean, smooth, no legal mess. You just have to sign here. He slapped the documents on the coffee table like he was doing me a favor. I picked them up, adjusted my glasses, and skimmed. Guardianship clauses, transfer controlling interest, retirement fund access. He'd thought of everything, except the fact that I'd already beaten him to it. I looked him dead in the eye. Jason, do you even hear yourself? You're trying to rob me blind. He chuckled. It's not robbery if it's legal, Dad. This is how business works. You're lucky I'm offering you comfort instead of humiliation. That was the moment I knew he had no intention of stopping. He wasn't bluffing. He wanted me stripped of everything, my dignity, my legacy, my independence. But here's the thing about arrogance. It blinds you. Jason was so confident he had already won that he never thought to check if the ground he was standing on was solid. And that ground? I'd already pulled it out from under him. That night, after he stormed out with his unsigned papers, I drove straight to Robert's office. The city lights blurred through my windshield as adrenaline pumped through my veins. I walked into that office, handed Robert the crumpled documents Jason had shoved at me, and said, "It's time." Robert skimmed, frowned, then leaned back in his chair. "He's playing dirty. But your trust? It makes these papers worthless. You hold every card, and he doesn't even know it yet." I felt the weight lift off my chest for the first time in weeks. The humiliation at the steakhouse, the whispers among investors, the threats of guardianship. They were nothing compared to the truth Jason hadn't uncovered. But I wasn't ready to show my hand just yet, because I realized something. If I let Jason think he was winning, if I let him dig himself deeper, the moment I revealed the truth would hit harder than any courtroom ruling or public speech. So I stayed quiet. I let him believe I was folding. I let him spin his little web of power plays and manipulation. And while he spun that web, I was tightening the noose. He thought I was surrendering. But in reality, I was preparing for the one move that would flip the board, and he would never see it coming. I need you to understand something. That night at the steakhouse, when Jason humiliated me in front of everyone, I didn't explode. I didn't scream. I let him walk away, chest puffed like he'd finally put me in my place. But silence has always been my greatest weapon. Because long before that dinner, long before Jason even knew the word inheritance, I had already started planning for the day my own blood might turn against me. You see, when his mother left us, Jason was only 10, I had to rebuild from ashes. She drained our joint accounts, left me with a mortgage, and vanished with a man who promised her easier money. I worked double shifts at the plant, then on weekends repaired roofs just to keep food on the table. Jason remembers the bitterness, the empty fridge, the repossessed car. He blames me for all of it. What he doesn't know is how close we were losing everything. And when his mother finally died, alone, penniless, I vowed one thing. I would never let money destroy me again. I wouldn't live paycheck to paycheck. So I studied, nights, weekends, every spare moment. Finance books, real estate seminars, even courthouse auctions. I built slowly. One rental house, then two, then a small commercial property. I learned about 401k, IRAs, trusts. By the time Jason was in college, I was worth more than $1.5 million. Quiet wealth, no flashy cars, no bragging, just steady accumulation. But I didn't tell him. Why? Because Jason had already started showing his mother's hunger, the arrogance, the shortcuts, the entitlement. I'll never forget the Thanksgiving when he was 21. He came home, drunk on cheap whiskey, and slammed a brochure on the table. "Dad, I want to open a nightclub. I need $200,000. You owe me for all those years you kept me in poverty." I stared at him and said, "Jason, money doesn't fix character. It exposes it." He never forgave me. He worked a string of jobs, always quitting, always blaming. Meanwhile, I kept stacking brick by brick. I created a trust. Quietly, legally. I set strict clauses. Respect, responsibility, stability. Fail those and you're cut out. He never knew the documents even existed. So when Jason called me pathetic on my 60th birthday, I didn't hear just an insult. I heard confirmation. Proof that my precautions were justified. What Jason never realized was that I had already decided to test him years earlier. I gave him small chances. When he turned 30, I wired him $10,000, not as a gift, but as an experiment. Within 6 weeks, it was gone. Gambling parties, excuses. No investment, no growth. Just smoke. I documented everything. Every loan, every broken promise. I built a folder labeled Jason, pattern of behavior, cold, meticulous evidence, in case the day ever came when lawyers would ask, why cut your only son out? And here's the cruel irony. Jason always assumed I was broke. He mocked my old Ford truck, my modest clothes, the way I still clipped coupons. He told friends, my dad's a failure. He has nothing. He had no idea about the deeds locked in my safe, the dividend checks, the trust fund quietly ballooning past $3 million. No idea that every time he sneered, every time he treated me like a burden, he was writing his own disinheritance letter. That night, after the humiliation, I poured myself a glass of whiskey at home and opened my safe. Inside were the trust papers, the amendments I had signed, the sealed letters to my attorney. I reread every clause. I felt no guilt, only clarity. Jason thought the steakhouse scene was the climax of our story, but it was merely the trigger. Because now it was time for the reveal. I had spent 2 decades preparing for betrayal, and the truth was simple. My silence wasn't weakness. It was strategy. Every sneer, every insult, every dismissal had been building toward one moment. The day I would pull the lever he never knew existed. And when that lever dropped, Jason wouldn't just lose an inheritance. He'd lose the illusion that he ever held power over me. I didn't sleep that night, not because of pain, but because of clarity. For 60 years, I had carried the weight of being underestimated. But now, I finally had the proof, the weapon, and the timing. Jason thought he had humiliated me. He thought he'd taken the last ounce of dignity I had. He was wrong. The morning after that dinner, I made one phone call to my attorney, Mark Jacobs, a man who'd been with me since the first rental property, through every deed transfer, every trust amendment. He answered on the second ring. Mark, it's time, I said. Silence for half a beat, then, you're activating the clause? Yes. Draft the letter. Jason's out. 2 weeks later, Jason showed up at my house. Not with an apology. Not even with shame. He came with demands. Dad, he barked, barging through my door without knocking. I need 50 grand. Fast. You're sitting on something, I know it. Don't play dumb. I studied him. His shirt was wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot, and his voice carried that twitch of desperation gamblers can't hide. Jason, I said calmly, do you remember the night of my birthday? He scoffed. Yeah, the night you embarrassed yourself? Get over it. Now where's the money? That's when I opened the folder. Right there on the coffee table. Pages of bank records, emails, screenshots of texts where he had insulted me, dismissed me, begged me for cash. Evidence spanning 15 years. His smirk faltered. What is this? This, I said, tapping the folder, is the pattern of your life. Irresponsibility, entitlement, disrespect. And it's the reason you will receive nothing when I'm gone. His face drained. He laughed nervously, trying to bluff. You can't cut me out. I'm your son. Exactly, I said coldly. And a son who spits on his father doesn't deserve a cent. By the time Jason stormed out, cursing my name loud enough for the neighbors to hear, Mark had already filed the legal notices. The trust was airtight, irrevocable. Jason couldn't touch it. But I wasn't done, because I knew humiliation would drive him not to reflection, but to revenge. And I was right. Within days, Jason began calling relatives, spinning his story. Dad's lost it, he told them. He's senile. He's hoarding money. He's cutting me out unfairly. He thought gossip would shame me. He underestimated how carefully I'd built this. I invited those same relatives to my lawyer's office, sat them down, opened the books, showed them the trust, the clauses, the evidence. One by one, their expressions shifted, from doubt to shock to quiet respect. By the end of that meeting, the whispers had flipped. Jason wasn't the victim anymore. He was a fool. The real turning point came when Jason tried to escalate. He hired his own lawyer, filed a claim of undue influence and elder abuse. He thought the courts would side with the poor son abandoned by his cruel father. But in that courtroom, when the judge saw the folder, 15 years of documented irresponsibility, Jason's case collapsed in minutes. His lawyer dropped his pen, shoulders sagging. Jason's face turned crimson as the judge dismissed the claim with prejudice, meaning he couldn't try again. I walked out of that courthouse not humiliated, but vindicated. For the first time in decades, I wasn't the quiet old man people overlooked. I was a man who had anticipated every move, who had turned betrayal into strategy. Jason stopped calling after that, at least for a while. But word travels fast in families. By the next Thanksgiving, the same relatives who once pitted him now pulled me aside. "You did the right thing," they whispered. "He never respected you. He needed to be stopped." And for the first time in years, I sat at a family table and felt something I hadn't in a long time: power. Here's the truth. People think revenge is loud, dramatic, explosive. But the most devastating revenge is silent, patient, legal. The kind no one can undo. Jason had wanted to expose me. Instead, he exposed himself. He thought he held the knife. He never realized I had already sharpened mine, decades earlier. And as I sat by the fire that night, trust documents locked safely away, I realized the reversal was complete. The son who tried to strip me of dignity was left with none of his own. I thought the courtroom dismissal would be the end. But Jason wasn't done. Pride never dies quietly. He made one last desperate move. He tried to break into my house. It was late, maybe past midnight, when I heard the back door rattle. The security camera lit up my phone. Jason, fumbling with the lock, muttering curses under his breath. He looked less like a son and more like a stranger clawing at what wasn't his. I didn't call out. I didn't argue. I called the police. By the time he realized the flashing lights weren't in his favor, it was too late. They arrested him on the spot for trespassing, attempted burglary, violation of a restraining order I'd quietly filed after his courtroom stunt. Yes, I had seen this coming too. The secondary twist? That wasn't the first restraining order. Months before my birthday dinner, when Jason had threatened me over the phone, I'd already gone to the county courthouse and filed paperwork. The judge approved it, sealed and ready. I just hadn't told Jason. So when he tried to spin the story again, claiming he was checking on his old father, the officers didn't buy a word. They had the documents. They had the video. Jason wasn't protecting me. He was violating the law. The next morning, I stood on my porch as the sun rose, coffee in hand. Neighbors waved. Some nodded with quiet respect. For decades, they'd seen me as a quiet man with a failing hardware store, the father overshadowed by a successful son. Now they knew the truth. I hadn't just offended my dignity. I had outplayed the betrayal. Legally, silently, completely. Thanksgiving came around again, and this time, the empty seat at the table wasn't mine. Jason wasn't there. My relatives didn't whisper anymore. They laughed, clinked glasses, passed dishes, and when they looked at me, it wasn't pity. It was recognition. One cousin raised a toast. To dignity, to patience, to Uncle David, who reminded us all that respect isn't given by blood. It's earned by character. For once, I didn't deflect. I raised my glass too. Looking back, I realized something. Betrayal doesn't define you. It reveals them. The people who dismiss you, underestimate you, treat you like nothing. They're the ones who dig their own graves. All you have to do is stand firm, prepare, and let the truth sharpen itself. Jason thought he'd broken me. Instead, he gave me the chance to rise higher than I ever had. And that, to me, is justice. When I look back on everything, every insult, every cold glance, every moment Jason tried to strip me of my worth, I realized something that took me 60 years to truly understand. Respect isn't inherited, it's earned. And dignity isn't something someone else can give or take away. It's something you protect for yourself. In America, we love to celebrate the self-made story. The man or woman who builds a life not because of what they were handed, but because of what they refused to let be taken away. That's where I stand today. Not as a victim, not as a bitter old man, but as someone who chose to protect his peace, his legacy, and his voice. Family should be a place of love, not a prison of obligation. Just because someone shares your blood doesn't mean they have the right to poison your spirit. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is draw that line, stand tall, and say, no more. If you're listening to this and you've ever been dismissed, undervalued, or treated like you were nothing, hear me now. You are not defined by their blindness. You are defined by the strength you show when you refuse to bow. I didn't win by fighting louder. I won by standing firm, preparing quietly, and letting the truth do its work. That's a lesson I'll carry to my grave. And maybe this is a line I want etched into memory, the mic drop of my life. They tried to bury me in disrespect, but all they did was plant the seed of my greatest victory. If the story hit you hard, don't just walk away. Hit subscribe, join this journey, and never miss another Velvet Kiss Revenge.